Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we will be discussing about the terrible mistakes that I think I made while studying for FPGEE. And even though I passed the exam in my first attempt, but these are the mistakes that I think can hurt anybody's score and might have hurt my score as well. So the first thing I knew while starting to study for this exam in the first place was studying pharmacology. And that's not because my pharmacology was kind of weak and that was the only subject that I find interesting in the whole pharmacy curriculum, but because the exam is structured in this way. So if you go ahead to the National Boards of Pharmacy website and you check out the FPGEE blueprint, the majority of the section is comprised of clinical sciences, which is pharmacology. So you have to make your base very, very strong, and you gotta have a very good grip of pharmacology to actually start studying for other topics in this exam. So the first thing I did was studying pharmacology from Lippincott, and I often get questions about if studying the whole book is important or if there are certain topics that you can study and you should be good to go for the exam. And the reply to that is studying the whole book is important because you gotta have basic concepts clear in your mind to move further down the line studying for FPGE. If you don't have the concepts of pharmacology clear down in your mind, you are not going to get anywhere, and you're finally gonna get confused when you come down to a comprehensive pharmacy review for NAPLEX, which is a book that is designed for NAPLEX, but you study it for FPGE as well, if that makes sense. So I started studying initially on and off for FPGE and started off with pharmacology until I discovered that the main section of the exam is going to be made up of pharmacology or clinical sciences. So if you go ahead to FPGE blueprint, you will find out that the exam is basic biomedical sciences 21%, pharmaceutical sciences is 29%, social, behavioral, administrative, pharmacy sciences are 15%, and clinical sciences make 35% of the whole exam. And the biggest mistake, number one, that I think I made while studying for this exam is studying the brand names by heart and trying to remember all the brand names by heart. Now, as a foreign graduate, I was new over here. I didn't know how pharmacy worked over here. And back in my country where I obtained my degree and license, brand names are big there. They do not have generics selling out just like that in the market. And there is no concept of brand names being pricier than generics like over here in the US. So I had completely no clue, and I was studying brand names by heart. I would try to memorize at least 50 brand names a day, and I would test myself by making flashcards every single night. And now when I look back in time, that was the biggest mistake I made, because FPGEE is a very basic exam and they do not test you on the brand names at all. So brand names over here are something that are completely mandatory for NAPLEX, which is the second exam that you give over here as a pharmacist. But foreign graduate equivalency exam, that's the first exam you give as a foreign pharmacist, does not require you to memorize all those brand names. So absolutely don't make that mistake and do not waste your time trying to learn the brand names. It's a very basic exam, and they particularly test you on your concepts of pharmacology and how pharmacy works over here. That's not what the blueprint says, but that is what my experience is. So the majority of the exam is pharmacology, which is clinical sciences, that forms 35% of the exam, and the rest of the exam, in my opinion, was just practicing pharmacy over here as a pharmacy technician trainee that I did for at least 2 years. Another mistake that I think I made while studying for this exam is not reviewing the past papers. And trust me, this is a mistake that we tend to make, that these questions are not going to be repeated and there's absolutely no point of reviewing them, but that's not true. Because the exam is 250 questions, and out of that only 150 is scored. So basically there are 100 questions that are not going to be scored and you are not going to know about it, obviously. So before the exam, I had a friend who would just randomly send me some questions and I would just randomly go through them, and I never studied past papers on my own. But trust me, when these questions, the questions from past papers, are repeated in the exam, and obviously they're not scored, but they are something that make you feel relief when you're sitting there in the exam. And these are so easy that you would know. So once a question comes in front of you, they are so super easy, but I believe they're not scored, but they were there. So my friend used to send me these questions from past papers just randomly, and I had randomly seen them once or twice maybe before the exam. And when I was sitting for the exam, that exact same question came in front of me. I was like, what? this is the same question my friend sent me, and how could it be there in the exam? The paper leaked or what happened? But later on I found out that those questions were not scored. But I had a sense of relief when I actually saw those questions. So it's absolutely a stupid idea not to look at the past papers. You should definitely look at FPGE past papers that are randomly available all over internet if you Google them and stuff. But these are the questions that make you gain a rough idea of how your exam is going to be structured like. And when the past papers are past paper questions are repeated just to trick you, you will know, and this will give you a sense of relief. So yeah. And the last mistake is thinking that CPR, which is Comprehensive Pharmacy Review for NAPLEX, is a book that is designed for NAPLEX. And why in the world would I study from a book that is designed for NAPLEX to pass an exam which is easier than NAPLEX, which is FPGEE? So the reply to that is, this is a book that is designed in a very, very smart way, and it's a review book. It's not a textbook. I get so many questions asking about if studying from Lippincott is important, or if they can only go ahead and study from CPR and they should be good to go. It's a review book, as I mentioned earlier. It's not a textbook. That's the reason I asked you guys to make your pharmacology very, very strong from the first book that I mentioned, that is Pharmacology by Lippincott. Because if you go ahead without studying pharmacology from Lippincott and start studying from CPR, which is Comprehensive Pharmacy Review for NAPLEX, chances are you're not going to get anywhere, because this book is designed in a way that a certain topic explains the pharmacology of the drug, then comes the kinetics, then comes the pharmacotoxicology, and then comes the medicinal chemistry. So once you're done reading a chapter from this book and from Lippincott, you know everything that you need to know for a particular topic. And studying only from CPR is not a good idea unless you have a very, very good grip of pharmacology and you just pass your final prof exams and you are a fresh graduate. That's the only one scenario in my mind in which you can be good to go with just reading CPR. And the last book is Menanchroff, and it's totally optional to practice questions from Menanchroff over here. I have an entirely different video that explains about all the books that are important for studying for the exam, and that should be linked somewhere over here or down in the description below. Feel free to check it out. But the last book that I have always recommended is Menanchroff, and it's a question answers based book, and it claims to have some past papers for FPGE as well. But in my view, Menanchroff is the type of questions that are presented in this book are particularly harder than those that are presented in the exam. And that is not just my exam. I interviewed a couple of my friends as well who gave the same exam and they passed, but they found the Menanchroff book a little harder as well. But a little extra knowledge never hurts anybody. And if you have time, you can always go ahead and check Menanchroff out. And it's always a good idea to keep practicing questions. But if you're short on time, you can skip it, but be sure that you're studying the question and answers from past papers of FPGEE. And again, if this video provided you any value, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if there are any other resources that you might be using to study for this exam, make sure to leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys again next time. Peace.